Hello and welcome to Delta College Impact. I'm Roger Wall, your host for today's program. And today we're going back to one of my all-time favorite topics, and that's food. And joining me is probably my all-time favorite chef, John Britto of the Delta College Culinary Arts program. John, welcome back. And I know today we're going to talk about something that should interest all of us, and that's healthy choices in eating. And for me, it's especially important because, as you know, about 5 weeks ago from the taping of this show, I had a heart attack. And so as you would imagine, it starts to give you all sorts of pause and reflection on what you eat as you start to think about what's going around in your body, you know, what gets stirred up in here. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how to have enjoyable, healthy foods.
It's all about flavor layering and correct choices. I mean, most of us eat way too many processed foods, and not that fast food or quick service restaurants are bad. That's not what I'm suggesting at all, and they serve a very useful purpose in our overall life. But we should be making a lot more intelligent choices about what we eat, as you well know.
Yes, I should. I know one of the things that I get to say now is yes, I should, and yes, I did, and here's what I'm going to do. And so it's going to be fun to learn a little bit about healthy eating and still tasteful eating. But one of the things that I know you're very involved in right now and that we're going to continue to be involved in, that's the Culinary Arts Foundation. And you're doing a lot of exciting things with the foundation, and we should talk a little bit about that before we get too much into this edible stuff that we're going to be showing you on the second half of the program. Let's talk a little bit about the Culinary Arts Foundation.
Well, this is our 20th year in operation, and so what we've decided to do over the years is after we got our accreditation and raising funds and so forth, we decided to make an endowment, and we're really approaching that $100,000 mark, which is our goal for this year, so that we can invest that $100,000 and then use the interest to have scholarships every year from now on. And so a lot of folks have contributed, a lot of businesses and organizations, and sometimes it's not just cash, but it's also a pledge, and sometimes it's a pledge in services or in food items to help our restaurant or our dinner. So there's a lot of ways that people can help us.
And I know that right now we have a lot of people that are involved in that, and if you want to send a check, make that check payable to the Culinary Arts Foundation, and you can send it care of John Britto here at the Delta College Culinary Arts Program, 5151 Pacific Avenue here in Stockton, 95207. And if you're worried about how large that check is, you can always call John and Shar at 954-5582. The Culinary Arts Foundation is doing a lot of great work, and during the year you do a lot of great things as well that the public can share in. And they can taste the outcome of the old classes.
Well, our restaurant is open on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 11:15 to 12:30. And we recently received some pretty rave reviews from the Stockton Record. We're most thankful for that. And the public is cordially invited, 11:15 to 12:30, Wednesdays and Thursdays on campus. And we do 50 to 60 lunches every Wednesday and Thursday. The menu changes every day, and the students rotate between cooking and baking and serving and managing. So they do it all.
And I know I've eaten there a number of times, and you do a great job. And it's great to see the enthusiastic students talking about what they do in the kitchen and talking about the plates that you present to us. So it's a lot of fun.
In a few minutes, we're going to have some plates and some of the students to talk about them. So I'd much rather let the plates and let the students do the talking is what I'd like to do. But today's topic has to do with choices. And I think we get pressed for time when we make bad choices. Truly, we make bad choices. It's easier to grill something, or it's easier to fry something or deep fry something than it is to stop and plan ahead. There's an awful lot of healthy ways you can prepare food, and there's a lot more choices with grains and vegetables that you should be doing. We don't need to eat near the protein. We don't need to eat near the cholesterol or processed foods that we do.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I know that always was my challenge is I'd go to a fast food restaurant, and it always seemed like the fried stuff was the cheapest stuff, and it also seemed to be the tastiest. But as we start to think about that planning and preparing, what sort of things and what sort of food should I be looking for?
Well, fats are the carrier of flavors, and so whether it's an oil or a fat or avocado or egg yolk or any of those, the fats are truly the carriers of flavor. However, you can substitute acids and vinegars. You can do some reduction and infusion and do some concentrations of the foods. You could use a lot more aromatics, spices, and fresh herbs. You can do some marinating, and even 15 or 20 minutes of marinade on something will enhance the flavors rather substantially. Do some broiling and do some poaching and do some non-traditional kinds of cooking instead of putting everything in the frying pan all the time.
Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is that as you talk fusion, it's such a great word in cooking, and I love the word fusion. Fusion, you mean bringing together different types of foods and different flavors?
Absolutely. I think if most people eat fewer than 100 foods in their life, they get into a rut, and that's what they do. They just stay in that rut because they get comfortable. They know exactly how long something's going to take. They know what the outcome is, and they just opt to do that. And so I think I would encourage people I would challenge them to get out there and buy it and try it and then decide. Buy it and try it and then buy one thing new every time you go there and then cook it 2 or 3 different ways and then see if you like it. Just because you don't know what it is doesn't mean it's not going to taste good.
And that's a great point. I hadn't really thought about it, of just having 100 foods, and that's usually what I eat. And mine was probably a lot smaller if you just counted French fries and onion rings as 2 of my primary food groups, my old primary food groups. What other sort of tips do you have as I start to think about my menus and my choices? When I go out, it's tough because if I walk into a restaurant, all of a sudden I can't ask the chef suddenly to make up something different. What should I look for?
But you can.
Ah.
And most people won't, because we in our industry have trained the people, this is the model. When you come in, you behave a certain way. Well, I think that's bunk. It's your money and it's your stomach and it's your body. So I'd suggest that you go back and ask that chef. And if a chef is worth his or her salt, they're absolutely going to take care of that guest. And so if you want to substitute something, then ask them to do that. If you have a prohibition because of health or because of religion, ask them to do that. I mean, that's our profession. And until such time as we react to make guests happy, then you're there and we're there, we're just not connecting on the same page. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, very often you can use an entree salad, and that's a very good way to order a half portion of a protein item and then a tossed salad or some fresh greens, as long as you're very careful about the amount of salad dressing you use. And again, fats and cheeses and so forth. Be selective. And I think one of the things I would advocate is if you're really, really good in your choices 80% of the time, then I think you could probably go off the target a little bit 20% of the time to reward you. We're not saying you have to go from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other and then cease the way you exist. That's not what we're suggesting. But I think that most people really, they fall into a routine or a habit, and just think about what you're eating before you put it in your mouth.
So that statement about special orders don't upset us is probably true, and most chefs would be willing to accommodate our special needs because I'm sure they want us in the restaurant, and so that's a great tip.
Sure. I mean, you can get food anywhere. You can go to a gas station and get a meal. I mean, think about it. You can drive from San Francisco to New York and never get out of your car practically. I mean, every meal you take can come through the window in a bag or a box or something of that sort. So we need to take more responsibility for the kinds of things we're eating and make some healthy choices. Is it easy? Sometimes it's more challenging because I've driven across the nation a few times. But you really have to bring your courage with you when you go out and dine in some of those places, without a doubt.
Now, we always hear about the importance of, I'm thinking about switching from eating a lot of meats, as you say, avoiding some of the proteins. But are all red meats bad, and is it always something that I should try to skip now, or are there ways that you can prepare it that makes it better?
Exactly. There's no such thing as good food and bad food. And I think if we look at history and we look at the world, and we're all citizens of the global village, and if we start learning from what other folks are doing, we can really do some healthy choices. It's just that we've fallen into these bad habits. And so if you choose to eat less protein, increase your seafood selections, increase your poultry selections and so forth, and reduce the amount of red meat slightly and then prepare it. The deep frying and the grilling especially, or the pan frying and so forth, that's not really healthy. You can broil things, you can poach things, you can roast things, and then have smaller portions of the protein product, and then more vegetables, more greens. I think that's what's important for people.
And I guess that's a great point, is that if we properly prepare red meats or some of the other things that you stick in the oven, and maybe smaller portions, that can be something that we can think about a little healthier living. I think one of the things that I can see as you do in your kitchens here at Delta College is you give the students a variety of food groups to look at and ways to prepare food.
The menu changes every day, as I said, and it's a teaching menu. So the students learn how to braise and poach and fry and grill and steam and so forth. And obviously they're exposed to a wide variety of food items as well.
And I know one of the other things is your menus that you have. You really challenge the students to come up with some varied menu items and some that really meet the different palates of people.
Yeah, we never know who's going to come to our restaurant, and so what we're trying to do is make absolutely certain that when they leave happy, healthy, and they're a friend of ours and they want to come back.
And I know one of the other things is always nice is the way you present the food, because as you say, just because it's healthy doesn't mean it doesn't have to look good and still be appetizing and appealing to our visual senses that you've taught me is so important.
I think that the three keys there is, one is the aroma. It has to smell good, and whether it's crackling and simmering and doing those kinds of things, it has to have really, really strong aroma. Then secondly is the presentation. People have to want to eat it. And thirdly is that flavor. And so if you kind of build your menu and build your plates around that philosophy, I think you can make people a lot happier.
And I know some of the other exciting things is a number of students that you have now in the program. We're looking at the one of the culinary arts dinners that you put on annually, and you now have really seen a lot of students coming back to school and people showing an interest in a career in culinary arts.
We have over 100 students in our program, and many are re-entry. Some are career changers and so forth. So we have to satisfy what those career goals are. Some people want to own a bed and breakfast. Some people want to do restaurants, hotels. Some people want to work in healthy facilities.
And I have to commend you, as usual, on your being recognized nationally as an accredited school for culinary arts.
Yeah, there's only 7 in the state, and we're really proud of that. We worked for 3 years to meet all the stringent criteria that they have, and so we're happy with that.
Yeah, and I know one of the big challenges is getting students to be creative in their recipes too. And I know I was just thinking about the bake-off, the Pillsbury Doughboy bake-off, and those sorts of challenges. And you ask the students to be creative, so it isn't just going to a cookbook and looking up a recipe.
We try not to teach recipes because in the long term that really doesn't help a person. If you understand what the ingredients are and what heat and cold do to ingredients, then you understand those principles, the very basics of cooking and baking, then you're far better to go out in the world, because there's so many different recipes. But if you know what the systems are and the procedures are, then you can adapt those procedures to the various ingredients that you get.
And I know one of the other things we want to stress as we start to think about this is you don't always have to be that professional chef or interested in a professional career to find some interesting classes here at Delta College, because I know one of the things, you have a lot of those fun classes for me, learning just to cook around the house.
Yeah, some are short courses in chocolate, desserts, food presentation, and so on. And we receive a lot of folks in the community who just want to come in 3 nights, over 3 Monday nights or something, and that's great. And we're constantly being asked to do some weekend classes just to learn how to do some very basic items. I think we are going to do that, some weekend classes very, very soon.
So we certainly want you to stay tuned to ideas and think about things that you can do around the house for cooking. But we're going to be right back after a couple of brief public service messages, show you some food, talk to some students, and learn more about healthy choices in eating. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
All systems go for liftoff.
Cyberspace, the internet, Delta College, college credit courses. Join us.
Hello and welcome back to Delta College Impact. I'm Roger Waller, your host for today's food show, as we're talking about healthy eating choices. And joining me as usual is Chef John Britto of the Delta College Culinary Arts Program. And John, we're joined by two of your outstanding students in the Culinary Arts program. And we have, to my immediate left is Isaac Doudstra, and to Isaac's left is Marv Hunting. And John, we're going to be talking more healthy eating, and so we might give us a little overview of some of these delicious looking plates. I tell you, I'm getting hungry, and the food looks healthy too.
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do. Most people think about food as, well, let's start with the pork chop or the steak, and then, you know, the other stuff will just join in, I guess. But in today's show, we have no protein products whatsoever, no meat, seafood, or poultry products. And so this plate right here has to do with perhaps a side dish that you might serve with if you really want to have some protein, or you can serve that as a smaller appetizer section for or selection for dinner. So just to show you that we have a cipollini onion, and this is spinach, asparagus, carrot, and sugar peas, and that is spaghetti squash. And so not only does it look beautiful, it's very, very, very healthy, and it would be a great way to start a nice meal. And of course, we go on to over here, we have a soup, and this soup is a Jack jalapeno cheese soup and black bean soup with roasted red pepper and cilantro. And so if you wanted to have a smaller portion to go with the other, you certainly could as a first course, or you could make that an entree. And it's got it's nutrient dense with the black beans. And if you have a nice palate with the roasted peppers and the cilantro and the Jack cheese, it's full flavored and it really is nice. Or you could try with a salad. We start here with this is a plum tomato, and it's dressed with mixed green and a seeded Parmesan cheese cracker. And just a little bit of oil and vinegar on the plate, just enough to moisten it and give it some bite. It'd be very, very nice as a first course.
And you're blending colors along with the food, which I think is just terrific.
Yeah, I think the colors and the textures, all those, and that's what I'm talking about in the last session, that if you really think about it, most people just react, and I think what you should do is be proactive. This is a vegetarian entree completely. We have vegetables, we have rices and so forth, but we could even put a few more if we so chose. This one is the classic Italian business here. We have the tomato sauce, we have the spaghetti, except it's all vegetarian. We have some cheese and some seasoned breadcrumbs on the spaghetti, and the broccolini and the carrot. And then for dessert over here, we have, this is frozen yogurt with fresh fruits and toasted nuts, and a little cookie just for a crunch factor. So we have some choices that I think that people would really love to eat.
And I'll tell you, it sure looks good. We were talking before we came on the air about the fact that we're all getting hungry up here looking at some of these foods. And Marv, let's talk a little bit about it. We're going to talk to you first. And I know you sort of have cooking in the blood, don't you?
Yeah, my father cooked professionally, my uncle. Yeah.
And so when you said, I'm joining the Culinary Arts program, you had a lot of coaches on the sidelines to help you out.
Oh, yeah. I've been helping out in the kitchen since I was a little guy, so I've been doing it for a while. This is just to take it professionally, take it farther. Yeah. Learning a lot under John Britto.
And that's got to be great when you go home and talk shop at Thanksgiving or around the dinner table.
Oh, yeah. I'm constantly making stuff for everybody. People are always hitting me up for something or other.
Now, one of the things we wanted to talk about is some of the food preparation that gets involved in some of these foods. Now, they all look pretty. Is this something you just whip out of the kitchen and not have to worry about it? Or what gets involved in preparing some of these dishes?
It's really not all that difficult. It just takes different styles of cooking, different means to get it done. Like like the soup there, that's just pureed black beans and some melted down jalapeno cheddar cheese, or Jack cheese rather. Just ladled separately at the same time to come together to make it look as beautiful as it tastes.
Now, I noticed that one of the things that you talk about is, how do you get it done? Do you just pour half in one of the side of the plate and the other half in the other side of the plate?
You have to do it at the same time, 2 ladles at the same time.
And I noticed with the little S in the middle, or the little design in the middle, you just sort of decide that on your own?
It's just a fire roasted coulis, just a design, just to give it some color and some flair, a little bit of flavor.
Now, one of the things, I guess, as you start to think about some of the classes that you take, where do you start to learn about some of these types of foods to prepare?
Well, the basic class, the 5 starts you out, and you really learn there. That teaches you the basics, different knife skills, make your stocks and different things like that. And then under John Britto, you take it even a couple of steps farther, and you learn major presentation and making everything look as good as it tastes.
Oh, that sounds great. Now,
Yeah.
Isaac, we're going to talk to Isaac for a little bit. Now, Isaac, what got you into the culinary arts program?
It's just something I decided to take one day, if you want to be honest, and I decided to keep going with it.
And so now you've gone beyond just going with it, in that
Right.
you're in an honors program here
Right.
in the program.
And I'm trying to bake specialty breads once a week for the student chef. So instead of getting a roll, you'll get a different bread every week.
Oh, so you're the one.
Right.
You know, and that's been great. Now, let's pick one of these plates and you can talk a little bit about it for our audience.
I guess I'll go with the dessert. That's kind of more my forte.
I always like it too.
Yes. I don't know where to go with this.
One of the things that you look at, I noticed we talked about yogurt being in
Right.
the centerpiece.
Instead of using ice cream, you could use yogurt. That's a little more healthier. A mix of fresh fruit.
Now, do I just drop that in there, or is there some arrangement that goes into
There
it?
is arrangement to it. There's also a little orange juice on it for the palate, and a little cookie crumbs on top for a little more crunch factor, along with on the side. I believe the pineapples were sautéed a little bit to bring out their flavor, along with the kiwi and the I don't know if the oranges were or not. No. Just to bring out their flavor a little more, because the sautéing brings out their flavor a lot better.
Now, how would you go about doing the sautéing? Now, not being a chef, I have not taken basic culinary arts 1.
I believe it was just in a hot pan, sautéed for a little bit with a pinch of sugar to help it brown.
So basically, I would just drop the fruit in the pan and wait until it looks ready and take it out?
Yes.
Terrific. Now, how would you go about some of the arrangements? Because I noticed that it's sort of like a balance of items on the different sides of the
Right.
plate.
It would.
Is that your creativity that enters into it?
It's more Mr. Britto's.
So as you'll think about that.
Right.
Now, John, as you start to say, if I'm a calorie counter, let's say, and I start to look at some of these and come up with a calorie count, what sort of calories am I looking at?
Okay, first of all, most people are not calorie counters.
That's
They're calorie talkers, but they're not calorie counters.
Good point.
And what most people do is they scrimp during the meal and then they order a huge dessert at the end. And they say, well, I've kind of balanced it out. Most of these, I mean, most folks are going, and I don't want to steal Char's thunder. My wife was a nutrition or dietitian, and I'm not. I'm certainly not a dietitian. I don't claim to be. But if you can aim for getting 3,000 calories, 3,600 calories a day or so, depending on your physical exertion and whether or not those calories are from the basic food groups, then I think you're doing yourself a big favor. But it's not just food consumption alone, and I really want to stress that. It has to do with an active lifestyle. You still need to exert yourself and get their heart rate going and so forth. And most people sit behind a desk or they commute to work, and they're really doing some not very active lifestyles. And so it's a combination of things. I also think, personally, that it has a lot to do with the mindset. If a person makes some healthy choices and knows what it's all about, and weigh themselves on an ongoing basis, so they really understand what's going into their body and how their body's reacting to that. We'd love to see people exercise, but we'd also love to see people come to our restaurant and make some healthy choices. And most of the things we have are healthy. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to have 3 or 4 portions of it like they do at home. In the restaurant, you're restricted only because we plan it for you. So we have a first course, and we have an entree, and then we have a small dessert, and of course soup. But a person can do themselves some injustice by consuming too many foods.
And I know, Marv, were you surprised at how good some of sort of what we would have traditionally thought as side dishes can look as a primary dish?
Yeah, I never would have thought of putting it together this way, but right.
And
A lot of color, a lot of flair to it.
And I know, Isaac, which is your favorite on this plate, other than the dessert?
I would have to go with the soup.
Okay.
I really enjoy that soup when we serve it in the student chef.
And I should say I do also. And so one of the things you can start to think about is how to make foods, the presentation, add to the palate. And one of the things I also know that we want to talk about, John, is on the first half of the program, we talked about the Culinary Arts Foundation, and I think we might want to put another little plug in for the foundation right now.
You know, it certainly goes for a good cause. I mean, it just breaks your heart sometimes when we have students who are single parents and they hire a babysitter and take a bus to come to class and do some of the volunteer efforts that we do. And it's for a good cause to help folks get through their training and get back on their feet and go to work as a professional. So, you know, anything that somebody wants to help us out with, we'd sure appreciate it.
And you make the checks out to the Culinary Arts Foundation and send it here at Delta College, care of John Britto, at 5151 Pacific Avenue here in Stockton, 95207. And that helps Isaac and Marv get in some of these honors program and some of those sorts of things. Now, John, one of the other things I guess is also interesting as we think about it, now all of a sudden, now I'm very interested in this type of food. My key is when I start to grow into the grocery store, am I going to be able to find all of these ingredients in the local Safeway?
Yeah, I would encourage people to go to Barnes & Noble or go to the city library and do some reading and take a proactive stance and watch the cooking shows and so forth. You need to educate yourself so you're making some intelligent choices about what to buy and how to cook it so you can maximize it. Too often people buy things because it's a knee-jerk reaction, then they end up throwing it away because they don't know how to cook it or they run out of time. So to maximize your dollar and to maximize your time, which will of course maximize your health, it's an intelligent choice that people should be making and not a knee-jerk reaction to, you know, just do something quick and easy.
So this way I can plan it when I go to Safeway, knowing that this is the plate that I'm going to be preparing.
Oh, sure. You should have yourself a menu, and you should buy. And anytime you can bank labor, that would be great. I mean, for instance, if one of the things I talk about is a four-legged chicken, and people say, "What the heck's a four-legged chicken?" Well, if you're going to cook one, why not cook two? You have the same heat, you have the same energy, and then save one for the next day to make a nice salad or to make a soup out of it, or whatever the case may be. If your oven is on, char some tomatoes and put it with the spaghetti squash for the next day. So be intelligent about every move and every time, every minute that you invest in the production of food.
And I'll tell you, I think it's very exciting to see the students here in on our show and to get another chance to learn from Chef John Britto about what we can do in the kitchen, healthy choices for eating. So I want to thank you for watching Delta College Impact and encourage you to tune in to future programs. And don't forget to stop by the Student Chef and really taste some of the treats that we can provide you here at Delta College. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for further Impact programs. Bye-bye.